Yo, what's up YouTube? We're back with another tier list video. Today we're going to be discussing ArcRaiders throwables. Everything you can throw in the game. The last time we did a video on this, I got a lot of comments of, you missed this niche item, you missed this niche item. I was more trying to cover the ones that actually have like proper uses, but there are a couple that I felt like I was kind of overshadowing, and we'll get into that. If you do like the video, consider leaving a like, sub, and comment down below. Really appreciate that support when you guys do it. Let's get into it. First, we have the Blaze Grenade. This has seen a lot of tuning as far as mostly just damage versus arc. Not always the most effective versus players. The damage is pretty easily avoided. When they throw it, it's a pretty bright yellow light, and when it lands on the ground, you do have a fair bit of time to actually dodge roll out of it as it hits the ground, and the way it spreads is quite random. So there's going to be times where it feels great and it lands right at their feet and they don't react to it, and it does like 50 to 60 damage. It'll maybe break a shield or two, but a lot of times people will react pretty fast to it and it's not going to do much. And because it's been changed so much for the PvE side, I feel like using these is not nearly as effective as once was, like throwing it at a Bastard or Bombardier. Not a terrible choice if you just have some on you to throw it like a Bastard or Bombardier, but it's like its damage is not that great. Like you're probably going to be throwing like almost 10 to kill like a Bastion, whereas before it was like less than like 5, maybe like 3. So not a terrible grenade, but not a great grenade. I think in niche scenarios, it could be pretty good in PvP, but not nearly as good as it once was. Gas Grenade was one in my original tier list that I said that I think gets overshadowed quite a bit just because it's a free kit loadout. You kind of throw it and you like forget about it, but it does have some pretty good potential in helping you in PvP. It's a very good area denial grenade because if you walk into it, your stamina is just gone. Within like about a second or two, it's just zeroed out. And if they accidentally dodge roll, they're doing that Dark Souls fat roll, and they are so easy to hit when they get into that, and they're not shooting at you when they do. So if they panic while inside of it, it's amazing. Obviously, they can still do that like jog, like your normal like running jog through it, so they're not like immobile, but it definitely stops them from being elusive to you. And it does have a fair bit of like obscuring vision, so you can throw it down a hallway and it will make it harder for people to be able to shoot through it. So it's got some decent potential there in a fight. Not seeing it used a ton, mostly because like if you throw it down, you can't push through it either, and it will obscure your vision as well. And you can't exactly throw it at your feet like a smoke grenade would or something like that. So it does have quite a bit of like anti-team play, or it could affect you just as much as it affects them negatively. So be careful when you use it, but actually not bad. I'd say B+. Heavy Fuse Grenade, I want to put it in S tier really bad, but it's still not quite there. Mostly down to the fact that you can't really use it in close range too effectively without people just dodging it very easily, because the fuse time is just a little too long for close range, but it works out really well long range. Hopefully my editor can put up the clip of me throwing it at about 40 to 50 meters. What you'll notice is the line just stops at one point. That's actually where the grenade blows up. I don't know if you guys knew that, but it's some awesome tech. If you start throwing heavy fuse grenades at long range, you'd be surprised by the airburst potential. They will blow up right above their head and you can get some crazy knocks. I have some awesome clips that maybe we might be able to find of me getting like triple kills and stuff like that, of like throwing them over the tops of like buried city rooftops, and they're unsuspecting, they're not looking up, and they're just looking at us. They don't see the grenade landing right on their head. So try the airburst out. I would avoid using heavy fuses in like less than 10 meters. It's just too easy to dodge, but at like 25 meters to 30 is a nice spot where I start throwing them, because they actually have enough time to fly through the air and then have some time to cook and then blow up at their feet. And unless they're like really good at reacting, they'll probably get hit by it. So not bad. I love the light impact grenade. Fantastic for like corner peeking people just sniffing walls all day. Fantastic for using against them. Just be careful not to throw it in the wall in front of you. It's very easy to do. I've done it many times. Or peek for too long and they shoot you in the face. Careful of that as well. But really good for like a player that is just like maybe the next doorway over, and you just start throwing at the corner of the door. You throw maybe 1 or 2 at the corner of the door. They'll back up so they can't see the doorway anywhere, and then you can push forward. You know, pushing behind a grenade throw is always a really good option, and light impacts are just so cheap that they're fantastic for. Another good cheap option that I love just crafting and using is the little smoke. Only lasts a couple seconds, 6 seconds I think it is, but fantastic for like, you can throw it at a corner of a wall and then push behind it if you have a better close range weapon, or if you feel comfortable with that. Let's say you've done a ton of damage to them and they're just sitting there healing, but you're like worried that if you push forward, they're gonna peek out and shoot you. Little smoke works really good for a scenario like that. Smoke the corner, rush the corner, really eliminates that opportunity for them to get that free like peek shot at you where you might not be able to react to. Lure grenades. This one I got a lot of flack for in the comments of the last video. A lot of people were like, I'm underutilizing them, but the more I use it, the more I hate these. The amount of times it has actually worked against me is pretty high. About the same amount of times it actually has worked in my favor. There is some like crazy combos that you can do with like, a Snitch Scanner plus a lure grenade, throw the Snitch Scanner, then throw the lure grenade, and it can technically work, but the times where I really want to use it are usually against like bigger arc, not smaller arc. Small arc just die if they fall over. I want to use this versus big arc, and big arc absolutely shit on these lure grenades. Like a bombardier will one-shot it. I've seen a bastion literally skeet shoot it out of the sky as I threw it over him. It was insane. And he just looks back at me and like says, "What up, bro?" Rocketeer obviously one-shots it, and because it has a high angle, it one-shots very easily, and it will just go back to shooting at you almost instantly. You were better off probably throwing at something else. So yeah, I don't have much love for the lure grenade. I do think that there are niche scenarios where the Rocketeer is like maybe over top of someone and it didn't quite see someone, and you were able to throw it at them and got them mad at anger at them. But the amount of times I've tried to do that and somehow the person was able to line of sight it, and then the Rocketeer for some reason like looked at me first, because remember, when you throw a lure grenade, it instantly starts blinking. So typically the Rocketeer will look at you almost immediately, see you, prioritize the lure grenade, kill the lure grenade, and then look for you. So when you're throwing a lure grenade, something you got to do is like, you got to throw it in such a way that the Rocketeer can't instantly look at you, if that makes sense. You got to do it like behind cover and get right back into cover, because he might turn towards the lure grenade being thrown and then immediately spot you, and then you're now on the aggro tier list, and then as soon as he's done with that lure, he's gonna come for you. It's happened to me a ton, and it's so annoying. Some part of me wishes the lure grenade only started activating when it hit the ground or like a couple seconds after flight, because it would remove that problem from happening. But what are you gonna do? Showstopper, I have started to like it more over time. I still feel like it's definitely more of like a 1v1 encounter weapon, because the amount of times I or a teammate has thrown it at an enemy and it's shocked my teammate that was about to kill the enemy anyways is pretty numerous. But they are fun to use as like an area denial, because obviously nobody wants to stand next to it. But you can also direct impact someone to get it to instantly explode, but you have to like throw it right at them. It doesn't have that much of an AoE on it, so you have to be pretty damn accurate with it. But if you get good with these, it could just instantly win an encounter. My second problem with it is that if you have weaponry that take too long to pull out your weapon, it's not very good. So if you have like a Stitcher, a Venator, or a Beretta, it works way better with those weapons than like a long rifle like a Pharaoh or like a Kettle. Maybe if you have a lightweight stock, it would pair really well as well. Shrapnel Grenade, I have a love-hate relationship with. I like them, but I also don't like them at the same time. You can stack up the 5 of them at the same time. You can throw them out incredibly fast. They do respectable damage and they have respectable AoE, but they seem very dodgeable in the sense that they're similar to a heavy fuse grenade, but with a shorter fuse, which is nicer for close range. But because of the shorter radius and the lower damage, you're going to get more damage fall off. I don't love using them as much. Also, they require springs to craft them, which in the mid to late game, you're probably going to be spending all your springs on advanced mechanical components, and you're going to want to spend them on advanced mechanical components so you can just keep maintaining your blue weapons. So it's a tough one. If they somehow gave us the blueprint to craft a spring overnight, I think my likeness to use them, or if like one spring created 2 shrapnel grenades, I like them more. It's just I find the potential of crafting them is pretty low, so I only really use them if I've looted them off someone else for the most part. Smoke grenade, still S tier, absolutely fantastic for like if a Rocketeer is coming around the corner about to suss you, throw it at your feet, really good for that. Then you can back away from it. Same with all big arc, same for players. Just be careful. The bug is still in the game where if you're playing on like any map that has rain, like electromagnetic or just rain rain in general, or a lot of particle effects, like even the fire one for Dam, where it's like there's like a forest fire in the background, the smoke can sometimes silhouette you and people will be able to fire through it. Also, if you've thrown it down and someone was already shooting at you, you might already be live pinged, and the live ping will continue through the smoke. So if all of a sudden you continue getting shot at through the smoke, that's probably why. So just be careful of that situation. But regardless of all those like negatives, it's still so useful for like looting a body, getting away from arc, getting away from players. Just make a path of them. Even bringing the little smokes, so good. Snap Blast, it's all right. It's okay. Decent damage. One positive amongst other grenades is it doesn't actually start its trigger timer until it actually hits the ground. So you can actually throw it like from the top of Space Tower to the bottom to kind of cover your advance. So what you could do is like throw it down the zip line, wait a second or two, then start traveling down the zip line. It should explode right before you get there. Like you make sure that there's nobody in that immediate radius. And also it has like a decent amount of like smoke and debris that come up. So it could give you somewhat of an advantage in that situation. So I like it for that reason, but because the fuse is so long, you can't really use it in close range, can't really use it in mid range. It's good for pushing people out of cover, but that's about it. It's just such a long fuse time after it lands that the target will probably just move away from it, but you could use it to push a corner, right? Throw it at the corner that you think someone's sniffing a wall, run forward as it explodes, you're out of radius, then you run through it and then peek the corner. Could be decent for that, obviously. Tagging grenades. You've probably seen quite a few people started to use them with smoke grenades. I still have a lot of problems with my tagging grenades. They track dead bodies, they track teammates, your teammates can't see what's tracked. Also, it can actually lead to you wasting a lot of bullets because you're going to try and shoot at someone, but they could just be sitting behind cover. I love the idea of them. I just feel like if they had more team play potential, or if they did almost like a little bit more of like showing the silhouette of a player, like it would be more useful to me. But the fact that they track dead players on the ground or downed players on the ground, you will sometimes peek a corner. There might be 3 of a team in front of you, but you're just wasting time shooting at a dead player instead of like finding the players that are actually a threat. You're just giving away your position because you're shooting at a down player. It can go against you very easily. I'm gonna give them a B- just because I think there is some amount of utility to them, but in a lot of situations I feel like I would just rather have a proper grenade to throw in there and then use that to push behind, because either I'm pushing them out of cover or I'm doing some damage to them, you know, I'm unsettling them, I'm freaking them out. Like, I don't know, I want tagging grenades to just get a little bit of love, I guess. Trigger grenades, nothing's really changed that much with them. Obviously they're not as powerful. They've been brought down a little bit. The damage fall off is somewhat noticeable. You can survive with a medium shield. Like your shield won't crack at about like 6 to 7 meters, 6, 7, but they are still incredibly useful at like 30 meters or so, because you just have to trigger them a little bit early because the timer has been increased from apparently 0.7 to 1.5. It feels like closer to 2 seconds, but you can get very good at just like throwing them at distance, triggering them early, and then they just blow up right at the person's feet, basically being the exact same as before. They require a little bit more muscle memory to learn the distance and timing on it, but it's really only a nerf in like extremely close range fights where like you're within 5 to 10 meters of someone and they were throwing it and detonating it. Obviously that sucked, but it does not feel much better. They are still easily the best grenade in the game because of that. They do far outshine Heavy Fuse Grenade, because everything a Heavy Fuse Grenade can do, you can do even better with a trigger grenade in that scenario, which kind of sucks. And they're also easier to craft. They didn't change how easy it was to craft. It's still 2 crude explosive, 1 processor, and processors are very easy to find, and honestly easier to find usually than the explosive components, explosive compounds, sorry. So yeah. A little disappointing. Wolfpack Grenade is going to be A tier-ish. I have a love-hate relationship with them. I find that they could either be the lifesaver and kill a Rocketeer, or like extremely damage it in like a PvP scenario or a PvE scenario. But then there's also plenty of times where they pull a random Rocketeer that I never wanted to gain aggro on, but one individual seeker went out and found him. So be careful. But they are particularly good for like trials where you're killing lots of Hornets and Wasps. They can obviously be good for Rocketeers. Just be careful. Ground Arc, it's like a mixture. Sometimes they can one-shot a leaper, sometimes they'll leave it at like 75% HP because of where they landed and hit the enemy, or how many secret grenades went off and found the most random tick or fireball or so on and so forth, right? So weird relationship with them, but they're still good to have in the safe pocket. Personally, I kind of walk around with them on certain maps just in case something aggro's on us and we have to kill it. Secret grenade, Obviously just like a 1/16th version or whatever it is of the Wolfpack. I have a kind of a newfound appreciation for them because I do see people in PvE lobbies, they one-shot snitches with them or one-shot a wasp that's annoying them and stuff like that, which is cool. But they don't one-shot hornets, and if they did, I'd probably put it maybe closer to A-, but they don't one-shot hornets if they're from the front. If you manage to not piss off the hornet and it hits it in the back, it will one-shot it. But it kind of sucks having to use 2 of these on a hornet. It would be kind of cool if they could do it a little more effectively versus armor, but we'll see. Decent grenade though. I don't think it's bad. It's definitely more of a PvE thing. I'm gonna put it closer to B-. But yeah, I could see it. Like if snitches are really annoying you, just throw one out, just keep going. It'll one-shot it, which is pretty cool. All right, Trailblazer Grenades. Now that we actually get to craft them and use them all the time, I'm gonna put an A+. These things are disgusting. These are like the new Blaze Grenades if you haven't seen them, versus like Big Arc. They will one-shot a Leaper like 90% of the time. If you can get a Bombardier to kind of just sit there for you, they will 2-shot a Bombardier very regularly. Bastions are usually like 3 or so. Once again, you want to get them to like sit there. I think it's doing the same thing as Explosive were doing at the beginning of the game, where explosives were going through armor and affecting the core like point blank. So it's kind of multi-hitting all the legs and the armor and hitting the core. So it's kind of doing everything all at once, and I think it's doing that. And on top of that, it does like 10 explosions if you can get really close to the enemy, throw it at their legs and get behind cover. You know, you're gonna get like 10 plus explosions right on the sweet spot. It's insane. I have seen it used against the Matriarch. If you can get it inside like the core area, like you break open the shielding on either side and you manage to like hook it inside and it like lands there right next to the core, it can do some respectable damage, maybe like 13 to 1500 XP per Trailblazer, respectable, but you have to be pretty damn close in order to do that. Remove some armor, and it's a little iffy. If it doesn't stick there, it's gonna do a lot less damage. I found the Queen move too much, so I didn't like using it on the Queen. The Queen just strafes out of the way, and very rarely do you get those like 1300 XP drops on it, so I didn't love it. But in PvP, it does work pretty well in like hallway fights, Stella Montes in particular, or inside like spaceport and stuff like that. Very good area denial. Or if you are at like the extreme end of the distance, you can kind of throw it at someone, and then immediately as it's exploding or like getting to them, it explodes and then does the trail backwards. But you're gonna get that initial like crack on them, which is pretty effective at like extreme ranges. But I just find it's very easy to dodge. People have been using them so much now that people know what the gas looks like. So I find it's just too easy to dodge to be very reliable. And that's why it's mostly not going to be an S tier, because if it was just better in PvP, then it would be the S tier PvE and PvP, but not that good in PvP. All right, Synthesized Fuel. I put this one originally, I think in like A-, B+. I'm going to put it in B+. People are noticing what they look like, but you can still use them as an effective trigger grenade. It's basically a trigger grenade that makes no noise, but obviously you have to shoot it. It does the original damage and so on and so forth. You put 2 of these at a doorway, someone walks through that doorway, they're one shot. It's pretty crazy when it does that. Even if they have heavy shields, you can one shot them, which is insane. If you can set up that scenario, it's really good for that. Fairly good versus arc as well, if you manage to like be close enough to a bastion to throw it, because you can't throw these that far, but fairly good. Okay, next we have the Leaper Pulse Unit. Highest damage grenade in the game, but it's very dodgeable. You can't throw it very far at all, and it is incredibly obnoxious because it's the normal like you got too close to a leaper, like that wind up sound and then the explosion. It's not as wide as the leapers, but it's the same noise, and if you throw this at someone, there's a very good chance they will just move out of the way. It won't one-shot you. Hopefully the clip can come up now, but it will do a ton of damage. And if you've locked someone in a room, there's a pretty good chance they couldn't dodge it maybe inside that room. But the way this game works is if you can get any amount of line of sight on a grenade, it won't do damage to you. Even if you find like the smallest of desks or chairs, there's a lot of time where that will just prevent you from taking any damage at all. So Leaper Pulse Unit, not the greatest. Also very expensive to use because you have to kill a leaper to find it, and it's like a 5k grenade. And yeah, I would rather use a Wolfpack against a PvE unit if you are going to use it in PvE. Let's just say that. Hornet Driver, these are basically like baby showstoppers. They only last for 0.5 of a second versus a player, which I don't recommend using in PvP, but in PvE, it's okay. You know, it's all right. 7 seconds, same as a Showstopper. Remember, the way Arc gets stunned in this game is it's like individual components. So if you throw a Showstopper on the front 2 engines of a Rocketeer, the back engines are still operating, the front ones aren't. Same thing works for like a Bastion on its legs and stuff like that. So if you stun it, you kind of want to get it like center mass or like affect as many parts or components of it as possible, like gun plus as many legs. When you throw it, it kind of does like multiple bursts. So hopefully you can get a large amount of the arc on it to get, but I would not throw it out of player. 0.5 seconds, that is significantly shorter than the time it takes you to take out your weapon, let's say. But maybe you can get a teammate to throw it and then you shoot at them, maybe? I don't know, but I'm putting it here mostly for PvE usage. Now we have the Wasp Driver. It's kind of just a worse version of synthetic fuel in basically every way. Lower radius, technically harder to get because you got to kill a wasp for it. And then it's way harder to shoot on the ground. I find that it will either sink into the geometry of the ground or just like be really annoying to get the hitbox right. The amount of times it has not worked out well for me, pretty high. But I'm sure you've seen those clips of someone throwing like 50 on the ground and one-shotting a Bastion, so you could do that if you want. Snitch Scanner is probably like a B, somewhere in the middle. It can be fairly useful to you, obviously, for trials. You can use them versus your enemies. Let's say you're in the basement of one of those Blue Gate houses, you could throw them on the ground and a bunch of arcs show up and then you could pop out from on the ground while they're dealing with the arc. That could work. But in most scenarios, you can't throw the Snitch Scanner far enough to reduce the risk of it going on you. You kind of have to use it with a lure grenade or Firecracker or something to make sure it goes on the person you want it to go on and it doesn't just screw over you. Be careful. Hopefully you can find a bush or some kind of cover to hide when throwing it. Fireball Burner, just a worse version of the Blaze Grenade in every way. Not too much to talk about, but you know, ever since the Fire Nerf versus Arc, you really don't see people throwing these anymore at things. Kind of meh. I wouldn't recommend it personally. Snowball, they were just fun, but if you have them around, I guess you could surprise someone with your Snowball or keep them for next time they show up in trials next year. But yeah, not much more to say. Firecrackers are something that kind of did surprise me. They are essentially a lure grenade, but in different clothes, but they do kind of do what I want lure grenades to do, where they don't immediately start making noise and producing noise. They don't have the same radius of like 50 meters, but what they do for you is that you can throw them towards arc that are like flying towards you, like on the far side, and they'll turn to look at the firecrackers. They're kind of like the typical stealth toy from like Metal Gear Solid or like whatever stealth game you think of. Very good for just like, man, I want to push this team, but these arc are flying in front of me. They're really annoying. You could kind of throw it on the far side of them, then just run around them, and you're not forcing yourself to have to use a ton of noise. And firecrackers honestly aren't that loud or that noticeable. The amount of times they have been thrown pretty close near me and I didn't even notice is pretty high. So you can kind of use them as like a stealth tool for sneaking around the map and not pissing off arc. But just be careful, the radius on the sound is not that high. Crude Explosives, another one of those. Well, streamer, you missed this. Technically, it does do damage. It does like 15 damage and you can throw it at the feet of players, but like it is so little damage, you are literally wasting your time. I guess one plus side is if it blows up next to them, their ears will be ringing and then they could maybe not hear your footsteps, but you already threw an explosive at them, so they're probably going to be on alert. Just use it to create one of the nades above. Glow sticks, I'll put in C- just because people just keep telling me, well, use them on dark maps, use it in this situation, use that. They're mostly just used for like illuminating a corner, but you can't bring enough glow sticks to illuminate every corner. They're mostly there for bringing the red glow stick and then throwing them in PvE lobbies at people, and then they think they're getting a nade thrown at them and then watching them squirm. It's pretty funny, but that's about it. Like I think it's just too easy to increase gamma on your TV, your monitor, inside the NVIDIA app, inside the AMD app, that like glow sticks aren't really necessary. At a certain point, I just wish they would do what other multiplayer shooters do and just put a little bit of illuminating effect on players in dark corners, and then nobody changes their gamma anymore. Personally, I would just enjoy that so I could just have the game looked not as washed out and not have to worry about dark corners constantly. But hey, if you're someone who just wants to walk around with 10 glow sticks and illuminate every corner that you think someone might be in, go right ahead. Volcanic rock. It's a rock. I did like the stat where someone threw it into the sky and killed themselves with it. And I think like 63 players did that in total. And they showed it in the stats at the end of the season. That was kind of funny. But other than that, yeah, it's just a rock. It does like next to no damage. But I'm putting it there just because of that one person. Actually, streamer, you forgot this one. Next, we have the duck. It's like C+. It kind of works the same as the firecracker, but it's worth more technically. Every time it bounces on the ground, it makes a bunch of noise and you can alert arc with it technically. technically, and you could distract a player with it, I guess. I think you would be a monster if you did that, especially as someone who has collected more than 250 and I put them on my alt account. You're a monster if you just throw them on the ground. All right, chat, that is it, YouTube. Hope you guys enjoyed the tier list. Let me know what you guys think down below. Consider leaving a like, comment, sub. And next, we're going to be doing a gadget tier list, going over all the mines and snap hook and zip line and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that. And if you haven't already, we already have done a weapons tier list. That'll be linked down below, and you can just find it on the channel as one of the most recent videos. So check that out as well. Much love. Peace.